Hello and welcome to the official book launchy party. She's out there in the world. And just in case anybody hadn't noticed the bright yellow, I have a new book and we're going to celebrate it in 2 live sessions today. So super excited. Those who contributed or pre-ordered are in a very private party over on Crowdcast. Anybody who's watching live anywhere, we won't see any of your comments or anything until later. We're being a bit elitist because it was all about pre-orders. And yes. Anyway, hello, Glenn Martin. Thank you for being my co-host for this again.
It's like familiar territory, right?
Reappeared. Yeah.
Familiar territory. Thank you for inviting me. I'm super excited, Katrina Collier.
Who else could it be?
Exactly. Well, I mean, you said to me, so just to kind of caveat here, you said to me, this is going to be super organic. I don't do super organic. So I have got some structure for this and some questions I want to ask you.
I have known you for what, 20 years, maybe?
Yeah, 20.
Not quite. Yeah, I expected questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it why I selected this color, or is it more important?
We can go into the color element. I kind of, for me, it was maybe a little bit deeper than that. I mean, I was just kind of, So just to kind of give everybody a bit of a flavor. I mean, everybody that's kind of in this launch party will know that there was a book that was prior to Reboot Hiring, which was the Robot Proof Recruiter. Yes. And I'm just kind of interested in...
Which, of course, I have within reach.
Oh, yes. Well, I have the original. That's the second edition, right? So, and I was just curious, when you write a book, and obviously Robot Proof Recruiter was pre-COVID, so 2019, and you write one book, okay, big tick in the box there. What I'd like to kind of draw out of you is that journey from the Robot Proof Recruiter to kind of Reboot Hiring. So needless to say, there is some structure and some questions that I want to ask, but I can see people.
Sorry, I'm being a bit rude because I'm writing a comment in the as people are appearing. I'm just letting them know we can invite you to the wing where we can. I just wanted to write this, and then I'll answer your question when you hear people, but not see you yet. But I'm just letting them know because then they can come and sit and wait, and then come on live. Yeah, which would be fun. So the question.
So
how did I go from?
Well, actually, that wasn't even a question. That was a bit of an overview. But I guess if we kickstart as a question, what did you enjoy about writing Reboot Hiring? Let's start there.
Oh, what did I write? Sorry, I'm multitasking, which is I'm inviting everyone to the wing here.
Hey, it's Mark. Hey, Mark.
Yeah. So you will come in on the wing somewhere. I don't even know what that means.
I'm going to give you some options. So what did you enjoy or was different or you learned or discovered through the process of writing Reboot Hiring? So I'm giving you a few avenues to go down there.
Oh, I kind of like what I really liked about writing Reboot Hiring was I felt like I got to say what talent acquisition often don't get to say. I felt like every time I hear an in-house recruiter. So I mean, if I say recruiter, I mean in-house talent acquisition, because really I have written this for the managers. This is for, them. I mean, agency will certainly be able to give it to their clients, but I've kind of framed it really for talent acquisition. But every time they say to me, my managers won't meet me to discuss the role. They cancel interviews last minute. They don't answer my emails. They don't give me feedback, blah, 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 blah. They just treat them with disrespect. They treat them as an admin function or a cost center. I get frustrated and I kind of get angry. Now I can see people in the wing. I'm like, I didn't know what that meant. Anyone watching live will be thinking I'm slightly crazy, but
certainly hear.
Yeah,
coming through clear.
Can't see you all. I can only see so cool. No one else can hear you, of course.
Hear us and not see us.
How did Steve end up on the screen?
No idea.
That's a really cool. That's a really cool hack.
I'm just going to be really rude and kick you off. Love you, Steve.
Oh, really?
Bye.
Okay.
I'll pull you back in a bit.
Yeah.
I feel really rude. Did I hit the wrong button?
It's a
See, I shouldn't
party.
multitask. It's a party.
It's a party.
Hang on, I
Everybody
want to
gets
put the
to
party
do what
apparently,
they
to
like
want.
a
the
party,
wing.
you can hear us all, right? So
Oh
if you're
yeah.
in the
Oh
wing,
my God.
you can be heard,
Did
right?
your book arrive, Mark
So
Mansour?
it did. Do you know what? My wife picked it up and then
Awesome.
put it on the side with the mail, and then the kids put their toys up over it, and I'm like, I've received it. I got your message. I'm like, where is it? And then found it. I'm like, yay, I've got it. So there'll be
So
the
cool.
obligatory
You know what? I don't
LinkedIn
know.
post tomorrow.
I wonder if the people speaking actually stream out. We don't even know. There could be these big pauses where anyone watching live is like, what the hell is wrong with them? This is fun. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah.
Right. Reboot hiring. So I took all of that and wrote it into a book. And a lot of the reason I wrote it was because, as I've mentioned, everyone's heard me say with the Robot Proof Recruiter, as I was writing it, I realized how important the intake strategy session, now renamed the recruitment alignment meeting, but the kickoff, the job brief, whatever you want to call it. I realized how important it was and how often it's undervalued and ignored, and managers are like, oh God, just go away. You've got the job description. And it's like, that to me is what's broken in recruitment, full stop. That communication, collaboration at the beginning of the process. And then if you add in technology, is just getting layered on top and layered on top. And it's not fixing the problem. The problem's human.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I got frustrated and I wrote another book for them.
Well, see, you've kind of glossed over that slightly. I got frustrated and I wanted to write another. 2019, obviously. True. Yeah, Robot Proof Recruiter.
Yeah.
Real success. Obviously, there was a second edition kind of printed as well. At what point did you think, I've got a second book I need to write? And how did that kind of come about?
That was coming into 2022, actually, except I took until this year. No, 2022, 2023. I don't know. What year are we in? 2024. Coming into last year, so the end of 2022, coming into last year it was. I wanted to leave a legacy in the recruitment profession. I wanted to write a book for managers and leaders, a book for the other side as a legacy book. As you know, I've written my memoir. I'm hoping my memoir takes me out of the profession because honestly, I've had enough. And I think that people who've spent 2 decades in talent acquisition, recruitment, all around the fringes, they get burned out. There's a point where you're like, I've had enough. But what I felt was I've written one book for recruiters and they're trying really, really hard to get their point across, but they're still being treated as an admin function in a cost center. And the way they were treated with the pandemic, the overhiring, the overfiring, the rehiring to a point, but not with actually the really great people, because heaven forbid we hire them back in because they'll actually make managers behave, watching all of that, it just felt even more critical to get it out of my body and onto the shelf. So that was sort of the motivation, but really to just have a book for both sides.
Yeah.
Am I answering your question?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just sort of interested in relation to the process of you now as an author, because we've had numerous conversations and it initially, correct me if I'm wrong, it took you some time to become comfortable with the idea of saying you're an author, right? You wrote Robot Proof Recruiter, and then adopting that kind of, I am an author. For people that really, really know you very well, and a lot of these people in this launch party know that, they do. It's that kind of humility is something that you kind of struggle with in terms of, kind of adopting, the mantle. Like you say, you don't like being called an influencer. It's
but that's a vomit word. Come on.
Yeah, but my point being, it's kind of almost like, what was different writing Reboot Hiring comparative to the Robot Proof Recruiter? Was there a confidence that came with writing that second book?
Yeah.
And what did you do differently?
So I was asked to write the Robot Proof Recruiter. And by the way, for anybody who doesn't have a degree, who failed English, like I did, and I don't have a degree, to be asked to write a book is pretty mind-blowing, but it wasn't in the plan. In fact, I was at a marketing workshop the year before And it was with Karen Skidmore, and she's like, think forward a year. I want you to, in a meditation, like go forward a year and look back over the year. What have you achieved? And I saw a fully written book. I was like, what? I had no plans. I never planned to be an author. And I think that's why it's taken me a while to go, I'm an author first and foremost. Like author and I've always thought I was a facilitator, a trainer, or whatever I was doing at that point. And it was like, no, first and foremost, I am an author. And that was sort of the switch. So really it started with that. Kogan Page came to me, and I wrote the Robot Proof Recruiter with many of the people in the channel, and probably listing 80 voices in there. And when I sent it off, when it was complete, so the purple version you just showed, when edition 1 was complete and I sent that over to Kogan Page, I then cried uncontrollably for about an hour because I'd never felt so vulnerable in my life. There's one thing to stand on stage and talk to a huge audience for 45 minutes, and there's something else altogether to write it out in print that you can sit and go, ooh, she wrote that. Can you believe it? And photograph it and take it out of context and some of the shit that's happened from it. Most of it's been positive. But it's the vulnerability level was something else. But the feedback was just mind-blowing. It's still up there at like 4.5 stars or something on Amazon. And I make no effort to get, occasionally I ask someone, but most of the time I make no effort to get reviews over there. So I felt vulnerable, but then I was validated. People appreciated it. I had so many private messages from all around the world of people saying, thanks. Like, you've re-inspired me. You've reinvigorated me. You've made me think that like what I'm doing is right, that I'm not crazy for wanting to do a human first process and that kind of thing. So that's been really nice. So when it came, and obviously then we had the second edition because everybody bought so many copies. Thank you very much. I was asked to write a second edition, and it's about 25% different from the first one. So it's the same theme, but it's just got newer examples. Things didn't necessarily get better, so I got some really interesting examples in there. Anyway, so when it came to my thinking about Reboot Hiring, it was actually I approached Wiley with a business book proposal I feel very strongly that I want to write this, and very confidently this is what I'm going to say. And I pretty well said what I proposed I would say. It didn't really change. And when I sent it off and it was done, I was like, good. Right. And it was a really different shift in energy from, okay, I'm just laying my thinking out there on the line for the world to pick to pieces, to, right, I have something to say, listen to this. And I genuinely, it would make me so happy if this landed on and I mean your hiring manager, every manager and leader's desk. I have no issues with them reading this. I feel confident they will learn something from it. What I don't feel confident about is that some TA professionals will learn anything from it. So I do get a bit of fear when they buy it, because I'm like, technically I'm saying what you would like to be saying. I'm just putting it in a book so you can just throw it on their desk. So I'm kind of like a bit worried about that. But does that make sense? There's a whole difference.
Yeah, definitely. And so I've got one more question before we open the kind of floodgates to everybody else. And
there's a few, I can hear a few people. I can see a few faces sort of up the top there. That's
100%. Yeah, I can see people ready to ask questions.
Tiny, really tiny.
So it's in relation to...
Bigger. I need Louise's help here.
It's in relation to the forward and the dedication. Yes. So the forward in Robot Proof Recruiter with Shannon Pritchard, and you dedicated it to your dad. The second, Reboot Hiring, and if I mispronounce this, I'm sorry. Hilke. Yeah, go on.
Hilke Shellman.
Hilke Shellman.
Can I just say, sorry, because you don't have the orange one.
Yeah.
So this one I dedicated to Derek Zeller, who very, very tragically has passed, because he was just such an enormous contributor to the profession. And Chad Sowash, podcaster, wrote my forward. I couldn't believe I asked him because he's a podcaster. So I just feel it's quite critical to add them in as well.
Yeah.
So
and like I say, Reboot Hiring as well is dedicated to Sophie Power. And I was just curious as to what, kind of what informed the choice of the person to write the forward, both in terms of the first and second edition of Robot Proof Recruiter and the dedication. and the same for Reboot Hiring. And then that's one of my final questions, and then we'll open it up to everybody else.
Well, Hilke Schellman has written an extraordinary book called The Algorithm, and she's an Emmy Award-winning investigative journalist. Oh my God, that's the first time I've actually got those words out. I usually struggle through the combination of those words. And she was sitting in the back of an Uber, and the driver was talking about his experience going through the recruitment process, and she just started digging, and she started investigating and started realizing that all of the biases in technology. So she's written this amazing book about that, and I've written this amazing book about, well, can we fix the human process and stop throwing AI in it? It was like they just seem to complement each other. And I got in touch with her, and I just couldn't believe she said yes. Like, it was just mind-blowing. But my hope is that people will pick her book up as well, because I feel like they're both incredibly valuable and they work quite well together. I mean, she said, like, you've written a sequel to mine. I was like, oh my God. Like, that just was really kind in that, the forward. And I didn't know what she would write at all. I was just like quite awed, but that's why I chose her. As far as, do we embarrass Sophie? I feel like we should bring her on screen.
100%. Yeah, I mean, she's there, so that was the reason for the question. I was like,
how do I do that? No, how do I bring her on the screen?
Louise said that you can bring her onto the stage, just like that.
Just like, how did that happen? What did you do?
Louise did it.
Oh, you're muted, Sophie. Oh, Louise is. Are you muted? Sophie, it's beautiful. Shall I fill in the words and go, hello, I'm Sophie Power? It's not working?
We'll get
Try in the settings down the bottom right and check. But anyway, I will answer because we can see Sophie's face, so we can totally embarrass her. Sophie has actually read my memoir and was helping me to make sure, because many people probably don't know that she has extraordinary English literature. Was it English literature you've done at university? Can you? No, she's frozen, so she can't even nod. But she does editing, book editing and stuff on the side. She does a lot of writing as well. Maybe reload the page and we'll let you back in. Maybe if we kick her out, remove from stage, remove. So if reload the, oops, I removed the wrong person.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh my God, how did that happen? Sophie, remove. Oops, sorry, Becca. Maybe Sophie can reload the page.
We can bring Sophie back in, and we can go back onto the dedication piece. For the moment, I can see a number of people, and obviously Mark's in. I can see Angela there as well.
Yeah, bring him in.
Let's start with some questions. Anybody got any questions for Katrina?
Hi, Angela. Angela's in the book.
I'm in the book, and I must admit, what could be better?
Can you hear me?
By Katrina.
Yes.
Katrina Collier, Reboot Hiring. Than two books and one signed. Katrina Collier.
Oh, I know. Bless you. Thank you for the pre-order. We need to do it like everybody with their bright yellow.
Well, you mentioned the yellow earlier and why you chose the colour, and that didn't get asked, so I'll ask that first of all. Go on, go with the colour.
Yeah. Oh, why did I ask? Because if you look at that top row of books above me, hello, Beck. See that's like most of those. Obviously, that's the Robot Proof Recruiter, but those are business books.
Boring.
I was like, and down here is Daniel Sloss's very sweary book, and next to that is there's another one. My second cousin, who's a woman called Judy Piatkas, who's written an amazing book about her life setting up a publishing house. And hers is also bright yellow. I was like, oh my God, I need bright yellow. Like we just need it. And because I need it to change attitudes, and that because really I'm asking them to just step up and change their behavior. So it's like bright yellow, can't miss it. They'll be like, what's that? Did that say save time, money, and hassle? So that's why. Was there another question, Ange, before I embarrass Sophie?
What was the hardest bit about getting it finished?
Oh, nothing.
I'm in a group chat with you. No, that's not true.
Was it hard? It wasn't hard. I set myself a really, really tight time frame because My first book happened to come out on my father's 90th birthday, which was the 3rd of August 2019. Dad had me late, for anybody doing the maths, okay? Thinking, gee, she's 70. And I really wanted this to be out. Yay. I really wanted this one to be out on the 5-year anniversary. So actually, I had to write really fast. So no, I just stopped everything. I stopped what I was doing and just focused on that. And I was really lucky that I financially could do that, and stop for a few months and write it. So no. Did I say I was having trouble finishing? I don't remember.
I just remember the deadline looming. And you're right. You were saying to people, no, I'm not doing that. Or no,
I'm not available.
No, I'm getting this done. So yeah, you were very dedicated to it.
Yeah. So if anybody's kind of like, can you please send me a free copy? No, because I'm broke now. The number of people, and I'm like, do you know that for each copy that's sold on Amazon at the current time, I earn 75 pence? Like, yeah, no.
That's ridiculous.
So, but it's a traditional publisher, so it's like you do earn lower royalties, but there's the kudos of it's published through Wiley, so it's like, you know, and both books are published that way. But can I embarrass Sophie now?
My mic working. There we go. I think my mic is actually
Say that again.
now,
yes, your mic is working.
Hallelujah. Apologies.
English literature degree you have? Is that right? Have I got
comparative literature, actually. It's a very expensive book group, if anybody's wondering. But I'm still paying for. But yeah.
Oh gosh.
English, French, German, American, classical. Take your pick. I've probably read it.
Yeah. So Sophie read my memoir, didn't you? And you helped me and made sure that that was all flowing in the correct direction as it should be. And so when it came to Reboot Hiring, I'm like, can you help me with this one? Because I also, again, wanted to make sure not only that I had all of the voices in it. Oh, someone needs to mute me. Did you hear that or just me? I heard myself a second time.
Yeah.
All of you. But that it made sense because I have not recruited for a long time. So I didn't want to be saying this is what it's like, because that's what I'm hearing, and it not be true. So Sophie did the sanity check of it as well to make sure it made sense. And then just general cheer squad. You were just there constantly through the whole writing process. And you're
it was super fun. And really cool to read a book that I feel like I need to pick it up, but I feel it's just sort of saying what I've been silently in my head screaming at some hiring managers for years. I know that there's one really interesting example of some real life work that I did in here, but there were many examples that maybe did not make the book, but could have done. Many hiring managers over the years. It's really exciting to see a book that speaks to them in their language, because I think that's something that people are always telling talent acquisition professionals, speak the language of the business, but nobody actually says what that actually means, though, do they? They just tell us to do it, and we're supposed to magically know. Again, neurospicy. So I'm like, go on, how? Here it is.
Yeah. Throw it at them.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's very aggressive sell, wasn't it?
I know, and it's not. And I should hasten to add, this isn't just for the misbehaving ones. It is. It's for your CFO who thinks that TA is a cost center. It's for anyone who just cancels an interview last minute, which could be a completely valid reason, but doesn't think through the people impact of that. You know, it's just.
I just also see it as well.
It's not that harsh. I don't slag them off the whole way through.
Yeah, and also I see it for. You know, and I know you disagree with me on this, but I see it for TA folks who are sat in one-person teams. They're the TA manager, but also the sourcer, the coordinator, the TA lead, everything. And they're like, am I going crazy? We've got to have a better way of working. It's also a validation and showing that actually, yes, no, you're right. Like, this is how to do it.
Yeah.
Here is some validation. It's imprint. You know, go and talk to your hiring managers about all these ideas you've had in your head that you think is this not right? You know, because it is.
I think the other thing I don't want TA to do is to read this and then go, oh, well, I'll use this and I'll use bits of it to address certain managers' behavior. I've heard that a few times and I'm like, you don't know what they don't know, because you might think you do, but actually it's probably better that they read it firsthand, because they may pick up something completely unexpected. And so that's why I'm a bit like, I feel like I've covered everything for you. Just take a risk. It's like 15 quid. I feel like it should be Mark next, because it's really late, isn't it, for you, man? Back in Sydney, back in Australia.
It's 8:30. It's 8:30. I've managed to distract. Honestly, it is. Usually it's 7:30. Jeez, how times have changed. You add some grey hairs to the facial hair in the head, I think your life changes dramatically. Hey, this is awesome.
You guys probably don't really know the Mark Mansour. Mark Mansour is a legend in Australia, in the world of recruitment. And we met, God, when did we meet? 2015 or 16? COVID. I met you earlier than that.
Was that Andrew? I remember it was at Andrew's event, so however many years ago that was.
2015 or 16, I think. And then I saw you obviously in 2022 at ATC, but yeah. Where we did Dodge and Cars.
Oh, that was fun. Beautiful. I honestly, I remember the first time we met. It was one of those Hollywood moments where everyone's busy. So I walk into the room and I'm chatting to a bunch of people. I look at her. She's chatting to a bunch of people, and we finally catch eyes. And it's like a parting of the scene. We've sort of just like run up and given each other the biggest hug. First time in person, catching up, and it was like no one else was there. It was lovely. And you are an amazing
I'm a bit like
woman. Honestly,
I'm definitely a hugger, so it's really bad when I hug an introvert.
Oh, mate, a big hugger at this end. But yeah, loving this. It's needed. I know at the moment I'm interviewing for a few different opportunities, and yeah, the book's going to be coming in handy. I'm going to be just ordering it and sending it to people. There you go. New organization.
Oh my God. So you're in the job search side. You're currently looking for an op.
I've been a stay-at-home dad for the last year and a bit.
What?
So it's been it's been crazy.
Somebody not have snapped you up?
Honestly, I wasn't looking. I've been in dad mode. Set just being I've been a stay-at-home dad. That's it. Mary went back to work, and I got to spend all the time with the kids, which is great. But I think now, honestly, I've been absolutely loving it. Seeing my son grow up. Like, it's not COVID anymore. So in Australia now, a lot of businesses are trying to push employees back into the office. It's been very, very intense what's going on. So yeah, I've just been chilling. I've been loving it with the kids, regimented, going to the zoo a million times, going to the park, playing. We're gardening at the moment, so we just planted sunflower seeds and cucumbers, all the exciting stuff. But we've decided I'm going to jump back into the workforce, and if I land the right role. Do you know what? I'd probably say 80 to 90% of the roles that I've applied for don't even have acknowledgements. Right?
Wow. Is that right?
That is something like still.
Like not even hey, I got your CV arrived. Like, okay. By the way, guys, if you don't want to stay live on screen, don't feel like you have to. If you like, I've got other things to do. Just like jump on and off. This is like a party where you'd walk in and walk out, and I just suddenly thought you might feel pressure to be here.
I know if I ever left the party early, Katrina.
No, I know, but I just thought Angela was like she's quite busy, so don't feel like you have to stay if you're like But just the lack of acknowledgement. And are you finding that is impacting your mental health, or are you okay with that? Because my understanding is that the lack of response to applicants is really bad I've had that with the publishing houses and the memoir. It's awful.
Mate, I've had a shit time as of late. I lost my brother a month ago, actually almost 2 months ago now. And my favorite aunt passed away about 2 weeks ago now. So both of them were really unexpected, and they kick you in the guts, right? You know, it's been a hard slog, and then you add to that, it's the economy has been really bad from what I've seen. Because I've been trying to do the fractional TA stuff as well. I've never received this many no's. All right. I've never been no'd this much in my life, and I'm like, dude, do you know who I am? Do you know what I can do? You can't say that, but that's how it feels.
But the thing is, they do know who you are. See, I've got this little theory of what's going on. Sorry to everyone I'm about to offend by my book anyway. Is that you've got either company leaders don't want to hire a really strong-headed TA because they could potentially really push back and really shake things up. So there's that going, I can't believe we can have Stephen's like not even there. I can't believe how many people we can have on screen. I had no idea. This used to just be bored, isn't it? So there's that, like if I hire Mark, he's really, really strong and probably not cheap, no offense. Like he probably asks for a proper salary. And therefore you're going to push back, you're going to create boundaries, you're going to improve behaviors, you're going to streamline processes. And they're like, oh, that's a bit intimidating. Or it's the TA team themselves are intimidated to hire someone better than themselves. That's potentially, but at the same time, all you're getting is reject on top of, you know, grieving. And
the rejection notifications are coming through 3 months after the fact, right? You've applied for a role, no acknowledgement, and then you get a rejection. You go, well, hold on, what's missing? It sucks. I think, I think things will change here. I think it's market driven at the moment. So fingers crossed, you know, we don't fall into a recession. I think that's what I've been anticipating for a while.
When I was there, the world will change very, very quickly. Look at all these people. This is new. It used to be 4. When I was there in November 2022, we'd already stopped hiring as a country, and it was like Australia it almost worked out 12 months behind by the time you then stopped hiring. It was quite interesting. The flow, it's like it goes to America across the globe.
Well,
I think you'll see.
Oh, sorry, Glenn. You just have to interrupt Mark because he and I will just talk all that whole.
Well, I was going to say now that we've got everybody on the screen, it's kind of almost like, well, let's start with some quick fire questions. We'll go because obviously. By
the way, anyone else wants to get in, just let us know. Glenn is on it. I'm clearly not.
I'm just inviting everybody. So I'm just kind of going Vanessa, Martin, then Steve, then Mark, then Becca. Actually, Becca, let's start with you because you've been on and you've been waiting. Quick fire question for Katrina. Come on, let's get it in the mix.
Now I know you said this was going to be your last book. But given the talent market at the moment, and I'm going to put it out there, what a shit show is going on in talent acquisition right now, and how much reversing we're doing and damage we're doing to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Christ, the list could go on. Is there going to be another book, Katrina?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no. Because the world needs my memoir, and it genuinely needs my memoir. I mean, so much of the stuff that's actually going on in the leadership world is actually mental health issues, which I think my memoir is going to inspire a lot of people to start addressing. And then it'll just be a flow-on effect. So actually the world needs that. I do feel there'll be a second edition of Reboot Hiring. If you will get behind it and buy it, please. Lots of them. Because already I can see like there's a few times where I'm like, oh God, I wish I'd included this, or I now need to add this in, or this has changed. So I see that that's going to happen. But yeah, no, I couldn't. I wrote you guys a book. Recruiters have got a book. You've got the Robot Proof Recruiter.
But based on what Sophie said, there's clearly a third book, which is Recruitment Horror Stories, which I think is kind of ultimately
Becca and I can co-author that.
Is that a book or a stand-up comedy routine though? I'm not sure.
Oh my God, maybe we should do
it a
that.
YouTube channel?
Shall we do that?
I think there needs to be a third one for all the people who weren't quoted in the previous ones.
Yeah,
exactly.
Let's
the unquoted
self-publish that one though, because we have to self-publish that one so we can include all the swear words.
Yeah. Sorry, I spoken to
Katrina
probably about 12 months ago about creating a podcast, and I said the name that I wanted to go with was Champagne and Razor Blades, a recruitment, a recruitment story, and I put that to Katrina and a few others, and they've gone, "Don't do that. It'll have a negative connotation because of mental health and all that." And I'm like, "But that's what you think of. That's what people That's what it is." But I wanted to focus on the horror stories.
Yeah.
Jeez.
You can't say that to the rest of the world. You see, that's so Australian. We get I thought
it was more pommy.
Nah, razor blade. No.
Beck, is that not a UK thing?
No.
No. Oh, cool.
No.
You wouldn't survive 5 minutes over here, mate. They'd totally tone you down. Okay, Glenn, back to you. You're in charge. I'm just sitting here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, let's spin over to Vanessa because she's been watching. A question for Katrina, Vanessa.
Hey everyone, how you doing? Good to see some familiar faces here. Greetings from South Africa. I don't have a book to hold up. Yeah,
I know it's on my dining room table. Will we all hold ours up instead? And you can
all hold up your books. Apparently the South African postal system is not what it should be, right? So we're having to do other routes.
We've got to get a photograph of as many on the screen as we can, though.
Totally.
Exactly. You're going to have to boot me off.
Let me remove myself. I'll remove myself for a second and I can take it. So if I send myself to the wing, then I can take the photo. Hang on a second.
There
we go.
I feel awful. You have to make sure you're looking at the camera.
Wicked. That's cool. That's great. Got that.
So
that wasn't awkward.
The robot proof recruiter is still in the post to Vanessa.
Yes, it is indeed. I do have a question for you. So
yeah,
I'm happy to fire away. So I mean, Katrina, you and I have been friends for a long time. You were probably the first friend that I made in the global recruitment kind of community. What has been the difference between being a published author compared to just being Katrina, the conference speaker that I met? I'm trying to sit here working it out. Probably about 8-9 years ago.
Okay, first off, I don't know how to get Glenn back on the screen, so that's a problem.
It looks
we don't need him.
Yeah, we're fine.
Yes, we do. He's my co-host and my mate. Louise, help. I know she's around. Sorry. Oh, maybe he can bring himself back on.
I'm sure he can if it's his account.
Oh, anyway. Okay. Hopefully he will. Genuinely, I got to up my fees.
There we go. That's a good enough answer.
So for all the freelancers, genuinely. The difference with how I was treated from one day to the very next day when I was a published author was quite extraordinary. It was genuinely. There's suddenly like, oh, well, she must know her stuff. She's got a book published through Kogan Page. It's like, I knew exactly the same stuff yesterday. It just wasn't on the shelf. And it genuinely, and it was just like, and then all of a sudden I went, okay, so my fees are now twice the amount. And people went, okay. I was like, wow. So anyone thinking, Glenn, I don't know how to bring you back on. You need to work that out yourself.
No, I've got it. It's all good. I'm just removing myself from the picture frame for the moment because I'm just kind of sitting there. You know what I mean?
No,
it's all good.
Sit here. That's fine. All the nodding heads is beautiful. We miss you. You're my mate. And plus, you were also instructing the flow of the questions.
You're right.
Hey. So, I mean, there's that side, Van. But thanks, I think there's because of that, the vulnerability of writing out your opinion and then people really being able to see your opinion is a lot of the reason that happens. But yeah, the doors that it's opened have been quite extraordinary. And I'm quite excited to see what doors this opens. I really want to get to those managers. Yeah. I mean, like thinking about what, because we have two Marks, Mark Mansour was saying, was, imagine, I get job seekers can't do this, but imagine if every time they had a really crappy experience, they went and sent a copy of it to the CEO of that company. And the manager's like, because, it does hit them with time, money and hassle. So they might open it for that. And then they start going, oh my gosh, these are our potential clients. We're losing revenue here. We shouldn't be creating mental health problems in people. Like, what the hell? That's what I'd really like to see happen. So
it kind of frames it a little bit in the context of not just being a book, but a learning development tool. I think this is the way it's kind of got to be seen a little bit more readily is this is an L&D tool. This is not just like a coffee table book that you pick up and read and you might take some takeaways from it. It's actually an instructional tool that actually has kind of forward-looking, well, to quote the book, forward-looking prompts in it. So it's kind of almost like, it's kind of almost like, look, don't be so reactive, be proactive. And these are the situations and scenarios where you can be proactive. 100%,
I don't know what Sophie's showing. What's that?
Cool.
Oh, my TikTok's at the end. Can I just say that there was one that I was stunned that they actually let stay in.
Go on.
I wrote something like, "Are you being respectful to your talent acquisition partner?" And I thought, oh, there's no way they're going to let that one stay in. They did.
Good.
Like I've been really blunt. So there's the summary and then there's the checkbox at the end. What I don't want them to do is to go to the final chapter just for that. They need to read the rest and understand. But
Very
Mr.
cool.
Medforth. Martin Medforth, the only non-TA person here, the actual manager, previously client.
Well,
I
previously.
I placed you at Colt Telecom 390 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a blast from the past.
You'd forgotten. Well, effectively, he placed me at Colt, and what happened to Colt?
I don't know. What happened to Colt?
No. I need to go. Bonnie's having an episode.
Oh,
so seriously, need to go.
Bye.
Right.
Bye.
I'll come back.
Okay.
Oh,
I think that's the dog, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So, actually, that was a really interesting. Hopefully, Martin's not listening. So. That was one of those weird ones where I got a job out of Colt Telecom. I put an advert out. A CV came in, which was Martin's. I thought he was perfect for it. Flung it over to the client. The client hired him. And Martin was like, "Oh my God, you changed my entire career," because I got him into this procurement side of Colt. And it was literally the CV came in. I sent the CV over after talking to him and everything. But it was just so easy. It was one of those weird, easy ones, but it was life-changing for him. And that's when I think what we do is so, so exciting. So it's, he's a really, really good human being.
Yeah, that's cool. So, I'll just come to Mark then. Next? Let's see, Mark, I'm just going clockwise on my kind of screen, basically. So,
British Mark, not Aussie Mark.
Yes, British Mark. Yeah, British Mark.
Welsh.
Jeez, now there's an insult straight away, right?
Oh, it's fine.
I didn't say English. I said British. I didn't say English.
Yeah, as long as it's not English.
Even so.
I need to ask a question, don't I?
No, you don't. Will we talk about what you said? I love what you said.
Oh yeah, I can talk about what I said. Yeah,
let's go there.
Yeah. So there's a whole section in the ageism section. So I was talking about how companies won't hire wonderful over 50-year-olds like me, and they've been quite ageist. And actually, Mark came in the other end, like the young, by talking about your engineering clients, isn't it? How they just for years have been going, I haven't got time to train someone, and now they've shot themselves in the foot.
A load of them are now coming back to this theory of, we really need to start hiring graduates. And it's quite funny actually, because the last 2 years, it's like, duh, yeah, of course, there's no one in the market for you. Well, unless you want to pay twice as much. And weirdly enough, I got 2 grads starting on Monday off the back of. Yay! But most of this year's been grads, if I'm honest with you. But it's been off the back of me going to companies. Me and you talked about this, Katrina. Going to companies and saying, look, you're not going to find someone that's perfect, but you're going to find a really smart-ass grad that's going to be able to pick it up fast. And we've had, early this year, we've had 2 experiences of that with this one particular company, and they've got pay rises now. They're doing their part of the team. They're going to be training the new guys that are starting next week as well. So it's there. Yeah. It's there to happen.
And this was the employees aged out, didn't they? So they basically retired because these companies haven't been filling in.
Yeah. So they hold this particular
bottom
company.
Of the funnel. That sounds awful.
That's exactly it. Exactly what's going on. So what's been happening for the last 10, 15 years in this company? They've been hiring kind of 40, 50-ish somethings coming into the business doing various roles.
Yeah.
And that's what they keep doing, churning through these type of people. But that kind of area has slowed down because no one's training. So the 20s and the 30-year-olds, which are now 50s and 40-year-olds, are they're not in the marketplace anymore. So we now got a whole design team, which are now over the age of 60 in this particular company, and they need to bring these guys in quickly. And there's 3 retiring next year. There's another 3 retiring in 2 years' time. That's a lot of people just disappearing into the sunset,
aging out.
Aging out. So it's not just happening with this 1 or 2 companies I'm working with. I'm hearing it now across the board with various manufacturing companies. So watch this space. I might even have something happening with a few with my business as well. I might be moving in that direction.
Pivot
as well.
I think also that you could do the if you can get them to adjust their mindset to the, some of those retirees probably don't want to be fully retired, because if we're going to live until we're 100, like, what are you going to do for 40 years? Some of them might want to go back part-time, but then it's getting the companies willing to look at a couple of job share, or because there's still that resistance to things like that. I still think you could probably go back to some of your retirees and go, are you regretting it? Do you fancy a couple of days a week? Drag some of them back into the world of work. And then they can train those graduates as well.
Yeah, this is it. The oldest candidate I've placed in manufacturing is 74. And that's why they brought him in, because he had this wealth of experience. He came in and his job was just basically consulting and pointing where things were going wrong. And he did that 4 days a week, 3 days a week sometimes. When he's still there. That was 10 years ago. Probably not still there though. But yeah.
You don't keep track of them, or you don't know?
Not all of them. I play so many people. I'm so busy now.
It's interesting though, isn't it, Mark? That like these kind of graduate programs demonstrate value, and yet sometimes companies park them. It's kind of just a short anecdote. I did a project with Code First Girls and British Telecom like a number of years ago, and it focused on bringing in female software engineers. I think it was about 25 of them in the end. And the hiring process was non-traditional, so they've just removed all the standard, kind of education benchmarks and hired on values and kind of future potential. And it was a massive success. All of those women have gone on to hold high-level roles in software engineering. Some have gone into design. They're all over the globe, US, Australia, everything along those lines. Yet BT didn't renew that program. They did it once, said it was a massive success, and then didn't do it again.
I know. The skill shortage in the UK is because of things like that. These companies are just not bringing these systems in. Apprenticeships, in my opinion, some apprenticeships are a waste of time. Yeah, it's hugely a problem. But in manufacturing and engineering, apprenticeships can solve nearly every single vacancy that's out there, and they're just not doing it.
In Australia and here in the US, for sure, and I imagine it's similar in other countries, the government got in the way and was like, go to university, everyone go to university. So we have a lot of grads and we don't have anybody to do some of the blue collar apprenticeships, which can lead to extraordinary careers.
And we have a lot of grads in the wrong degrees.
Who was I talking to about a lack of electricians? I can't think who I was talking to. Another TA lead. And that's a huge problem because they're creating the points for all the power vehicles and they haven't got people.
Yeah, we're 36,000 technicians short for EV cars. And we're going to need them in the next 3 years. There's no training program. So,
maybe this is the next book. No.
I'll
you need to write a book on that.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Becca, Sophie, and I are doing recruitment horror stories.
Well, I did start writing a
Mark
book.
Is not providing razor blades.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I started writing a book, and it started turning into a comedy book. Now I'm kind of worried that might be.
I know, great editor.
Cool. Let's roll on to Stephen then. Come on, Stephen. You've been waiting patiently there.
God.
Yeah, I mean, this will be a curveball question as well. So I'm kind of excited for this one.
I'm not sure I like the implication there. So, Katrina, you have, I think I said with your first book, you have a really readable writing style.
He just flashed a branded copy from Logic Melon, by the way, which means that Stephen got a freebie. Thank you, Logic Melon.
My apologies. But
no, I think it's great. It's wonderful.
So your writing style is very readable and really accessible. It's not dense. It's not. Oh, come on. Some things you read and they're just hard to plow through. And with yours, in the way, like you get books that are page turners because you want to know what happens next. With this, you can find yourself halfway through without realizing you've been reading for a long time. That said, I don't read many books these days because I've turned on to audiobooks. And what I want to ask is, when are you going to do the audiobook? Because I think so many folk in our business, like me, when you're traveling, when you're moving around, when you're doing your walk or whatever, an audiobook you can plow through 2 or 3 chapters a day, easy.
Yes. Well, I have hassled Wiley because I've actually been asked by a lot of people already for an audiobook. So it's really up to the publishing house. But I have actually already asked, because I also think in the management and leadership space, which is where this book should be, that's where it's intended audience, they tend to listen to a lot of audiobooks and podcasts. And so I am pushing that. But the more requests I have, the more times I can say I've had this number of people ask me.
Supplementary question: when you're quoting anyone else, are you going to do the voices of those people?
I don't know, because normally they're recorded in a studio, but that would be really cool.
But
no, I'm not sure they can all come in. If I was recording it myself, absolutely, I'd get everybody to do that.
Do Stephen's voice.
So I'm not going to do their accents. He meant get their voices.
I'll put on the hybrid voice, for example. So I'd like to hear Katrina do Mark's voice in a Welsh accent.
Sorry, you meant me do their voices as opposed. Sorry, yes, exactly. I thought you meant they would do. Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean for Mark, I just talk through my nose for Mark Mansour. I sound like a banana bender.
Well, there's a good question there. If you could choose the voice, if you could choose anybody to voice that book, who would it be? I mean, anybody.
Well, Stephen Fry, surely, or Joanna Lumley.
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah. No,
I had Joanna Lumley doing an advert earlier on, and I was transfixed.
Yeah, I mean, there's just something about her, you just lean in. But it's funny, this is going to sound a bit arrogant, but obviously I have to read my own book because I wrote it in January, February, and February, March, and I'd forgotten what I'd written. And I was doing what you were saying, Stephen, and I was actually stunned at the pace of how fast I was reading through it. And I was like, wow, this really is, it feels like a faster pace than the Robot Proof Recruiter. It's much quicker to read. It's less, fewer words, less words, whichever one's correct, Sophie. It's only 53,000 words, because people these days apparently can only read books of 45 to 50,000 words. So that's quite a change in the last however many years that the Robot Proof Recruiter is 70,000. So it's that's just different. Have I lost you or something? You're all looking at me a bit bored. Maybe I can.
Also, I think you've got a non-fiction book in you as well. Never mind the the backstory to Katrina. I think there's a fiction book in there too.
A fiction book?
Yeah.
What do you mean? No. No. I'll leave that to Sophie. I don't have the creativity. Oh yeah, I mean, we could do it totally. We could just do real life stories and change the names and do that as a fiction piece. But no, I couldn't write wouldn't even know how to start to write an actual novel and
change to protect the innocent.
I think there is.
I do actually know what. Actually, it's not true. I do know what my fourth book is. It's just not related. Sorry, Glenn.
I was just going to say, there's somebody that we both know who I've been trying to encourage to write a book for a long time. That's a gentleman that we work with called Ray Murphy, agency side. He's still a recruiter now, in his 60s. He won't thank me for that. But I've been trying to encourage him to write Murphy's Law, which is basically an expose of the recruitment industry. I'm not being funny. There will be people in very high positions across the recruitment industry thinking, if he writes that book, it could be really bad for me. Screwed. He has quite literally got a kind of he's got stories on everybody. That would be a book that I'd want to read. Because I know personally it wouldn't be.
Sorry, did you just admit there that you are going to write another book after adamantly denying half an hour ago?
No, sorry, but it's not in the world of recruitment, you see. I'm going to write my What If It's Not book, which will be like blasting apart all the myths of all of the labels that we're given for all these conditions that we don't have. There'll be that. That'll be the fourth. I'd forgotten there is a fourth book coming. I can feel it brewing. But Papa Smurf, as I call Ray Murphy, he was the team leader for me. And I've had a few who really just stood out over my career, because when I was a very defensive, self-hating victim of child abuse, I was very, very, very difficult to manage, and he had to manage me at that time. But I remember we were talking about CVs, and he said, you need 2 words. So what? So when you read a bullet on the CV and it says, I changed this process, you think, so what? And then you get the benefit. And I definitely quoted him, the robot proof recruiter, for that. And I just was so powerful that on top of him actually managing to manage me, which is really quite an extraordinary feat in itself, but that so what? And I just use it in everything. So if I write something for my website, I'm like, so what? Is that a benefit to the person reading it? That kind of thing. So I love him. He should write it. Murphy's Law. Let's start a petition.
Yeah, exactly. I've already sent him the book cover, so I'm trying to push him to write.
You've created a book cover.
But Martin's back. Hey, Martin.
Martin.
Hello. Yeah.
Tilly, all right?
It's Bonnie. Here we are.
Oh, Bonnie. Oh God, sorry. Brain's not working. Oh. What happened to Steve? He disappeared.
So yeah, no, she's 9 going on 10, and has occasional episodes, sort of minor fit. So I just had to go and grab the diazepam.
Oh, bless her. It was the excitement. She could feel the energy from the book launch.
Yeah, she does. It's increasing in frequency, but she's now like once every three months or so, and it just happens. Just like nowhere.
Well,
luckily enough, she was just next to me. But there you are.
My dog has the same problem. I don't know if she's got a bad spine or not, but mine's got spondylosis, and it gives them fits.
Oh, that could be it, because she's a basset. So obviously, overall, a lot of weight for a dog on little legs.
Oh, yeah. Back to the book, Katrina.
But to final, I suppose to ask my question, do you think there are actually any carryovers from the lessons that we're sort of beginning to get from from sort of talent acquisition in terms of what might be described as putting too much trust in AI? That there'll be carryover stuff for other world, because I'm in sort of procurement, and I think we're already starting to see AI start to sort of wend its way in there, and already equally colleagues have started to point out that it can produce some pretty damn stupid results. I think it's that sense of balancing human with AI, and lessons learned that can go beyond the TA community question.
Yeah. See, actually, it's quite similar in a way, because procurement is seen as an admin and a cost center, yet is incredibly important at saving the company's money by getting the right suppliers, for example, right? So it actually creates profit. It creates opportunity. TA is the same. They're the people recruiting the people that decide the fate of the company, but they're seen as a cost center and an admin function, and it just makes no sense. But actually, they can hire these people that can greatly impact the company's success or not. And I think it's the case of, I'm asking all the time in this book for leaders to see the value of the human beings and the value of the TA function. And I think, I ask recruiters, and I've been saying this, and Glenn said this multiple times, that you need to show your value. You need to, in every conversation, be able to say, well, don't forget that I introduced that process that led to this outcome that delivered this to the bottom line. That's what someone in procurement might do. We might say, we hired this star hire and they've delivered this. And I did find it quite disappointing. Again, sorry, most of you have heard this before, but how few talent acquisition professionals know who their star hires are, and can't then in a conversation say, well, I hired this person and they did this. So you're sure AI can do that? And actually, the big thing I also don't see is we keep forgetting nobody's asked candidates if they want to deal with AI. I'm not convinced that they want to put their career into the hands of AI. Can we bring Steve on? Bless him. Oh, I've just gone big.
Ooh.
What's going on?
That's clever.
Oh, I didn't like that. So
That was a moment.
But I mean, I think in general also, Martin, anybody working in procurement would potentially be hiring for their team. So there's lessons from, because it's aimed for people who don't recruit day to day. I didn't write it for recruiters per se. So
great question. And finally, Steve, who came on as a speaker and then you booted him off. He's back on again now.
Yeah, we were at the beginning. Sir. I'm sorry, Steve loves me. He's okay. It's all good. He, I talk to him once a fortnight anyway. You'll be right.
Yes.
Sorry, mate.
Religiously.
Sorry. Over to you, Steve. Fire away.
A question for Katrina. Wow. Again, I hadn't come with a question, but I'm going to.
You don't have to. I want to know why Louise isn't coming on the screen. I keep inviting her on and she's not coming on.
She's in a meeting.
Oh, gotcha. Right.
She's in a meeting. Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be a question, Steve. Maybe an observational reboot hiring, because I think all of us collectively have kind of been in contact with Katrina during the course of reboot hiring being written, and obviously contributions and stuff like that. I don't know if there's any kind of reflections from your point of view around, around the book itself.
Good question. I'd actually like to reflect on something in relation to Katrina specifically, because I do have the privilege of talking every 2 weeks, and we are a support to each other on many, many different things. And I just remember, I just want to honor like the dedication and the focus of writing a book, because I just remember you went so focused on it, and you were like just went totally zeroed out and really went for it. And of course, like we all go through these like emotional turmoils when we're putting our work out there or whatever we're doing in life. And I've seen you in different modes and modalities in relation to that. So, you know what? I just want to honor that. At the end of the day, you've produced this kind of tangible book, and it's an amazing contribution to the industry. I think this has always been consistently one of the most challenging areas for those working in the profession, whether it's in-house or agency side. I think if we think of that on the human side of leaders and managers today, particularly now with Gen Z, I'm very fast approaching the biggest proportion of workforce in our workplace. At the end of the day, right, this thing is a skill, and it's something you have to acquire. You're not suddenly wake up and born, I'm a recruiter. It's something you have to develop and focus on. And it is an art. And I think, and I would say, I mean, this is just an observation. We've discussed this as well, is that I just think the art form of recruiting has been eroded so much, I think, over the years. So, really I think this is much needed. Yeah, much needed.
And that's so much of that cost-cutting exercise. Like, I don't know whether you were here when Mark was talking, Mark Mansell was saying, like Mark's not getting hired. Mark's an exceptional recruiter and head at TA. And it's like, he's going to shake the cart and make sure his team is extraordinary and that they have the art and the skills. And it's like, but that can be intimidating to some leaders who perhaps aren't so strong. But there's also, there's a stat, there's something like 80% of, I'm sure it was 80% of managers are accidental managers. It was a UK stat, so I don't know about the rest of the world. So if they're an accidental manager, they don't even know how to manage their team. And then you've got them learning to recruit for their team. They don't know what they're doing. And what was extraordinary when I was looking at the bookshelf, and you, because what happens when you send a book proposal to a publisher is you need to know where it's going to sit on the shelf. Bye, Save. Bye. They want to know, well, is there a gap in the market for this, and what category is it going to be? And so it's easy. It's a business book, right? It's about recruitment, but there was nothing out there for managers to help them articulate who they need to hire, and then understand what talent acquisition is and why you partner with them. Like, why do I give them my time? Like, no one's telling me this. And then the next bit of like, there's a chapter on interview considerations. There's lots of books on how to interview. This is not that. This is stuff to think about. this is the impact that you have when you act this way. And it just felt like there's nothing there. But it's like you're saying, the art's not being taught. And then there's that, it's like almost chicken and egg, isn't it? If TA don't feel like that they can stand up and get the manager's time to then explain to them why all of this matters. So it's, anyway, friction.
Sorry, I have a quick question for Stephen before you go. Stephen, I'm looking at all the pictures here. Something tells me, I don't know, it's a small sense that your favourite colour is blue for some reason. What's that?
I can't see what you're seeing, Steve, to be fair.
ABB always be branding. It's TA Tech blue, but I can switch to red to accessorise with Katrina's shirt.
It's actually orange.
Okay.
It always looks like red. It's really funny. It's so funny what these cameras do. But, by the way, it's gorgeous you're hanging out, but please don't feel like if you, it's.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get some calls. But great to see everyone. Hope to see you in the.
Thanks, Stephen. Take care.
Bye. Bye.
I think Mark's bouncing as well. Oh, no. You're saying latest mate to him.
Oh, Mark won't bounce. Mark's as in Mansell is in the evening. I don't know about. You're both above each other now on my screen.
Exactly. Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah, that looks very rude.
Hey, stop it!
Just as a
long time
little,
since that's happened.
just as a little sidebar, Katrina.
Oh my God! Sorry. Yeah.
We are, obviously you've been asked about another book, and you've touched upon the memoirs that have been written. So.
Oh, it's written. It was written before.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like, so just without kind of perhaps going into the book itself, was there a different approach style to writing that? Because that's completely outside of the kind of recruitment industry, right? So what did you kind of channel? How did you know that book was in you, needed to be written?
Oh my God, that like bubbled up. People that write will get it. What I mean, it's like, I have to get this out of my body. It started bubbling up. And it had been bubbling up for quite several years. Where I have to tell my story. And it's interesting because a lot of you have met me. Actually, no, Martin met me before I had done any of the healing, but probably didn't remember because it's not like we hung out. Really, it was a professional relationship. But a lot of people don't know the old me, the unhealed me, the very defensive and self-loathing. So, it'll surprise a few people. But I felt like I needed to share the journey of healing. Not so much. So it's a bit unusual because it's like there's one chapter that's okay. This was why my childhood was monumentally fucked up, basically. Sorry. There were some good things in it, but it was a really tough childhood and it didn't set me up for adulthood. And then it was, the chapters that there were a few unexpected chapters, which actually I might come back to, but really I structured in, these are the people that helped me realize that it was child abuse and help me heal it and to go through. So I kind of did each chapter as the human being that helped me to overcome that and then to spiritually open, which, I didn't expect to write it all out, but I wrote it all out. And I wrote out everything that some people will think is weird and wacky and they don't know about me and they'll be a bit like, okay, and that's fine. Probably the unexpected chapter is I wrote a chapter about my Labrador because he actually made me realize that I didn't know how to play. Bye, Steve. I didn't know how to play. I didn't have the freedom and the safety as a child to do that. So that was a bit unexpected. And then the impact of our words, because, if you raise your voice, you can see an animal react. They're kind of like, and it was sort of like, there were a few eye-opening things like that, but really it took longer because it was so deeply personal. And there'd be a lot of healing going on while I was writing it as well. Who else is going? Sorry,
Martin.
There's all this waving.
Thanks,
going.
Martin.
Oh, bye, Martin. So it'd be like I would write something and I'd have to research it and then I'd have aha moments. And whereas writing Reboot Hiring was very much like, this is what I need to say. I found writing Reboot Hiring harder than writing the Robot Proof Recruiter though, because the Robot Proof Recruiter has such a logical process to it in comparison. So I'm not sure I just answered your question, but I did waffle along for like 5 minutes.
That's cool. I was just curious because ultimately writing Robot Proof Recruit and Reboot Hiring would be a very different approach to your kind of memoirs. And I guess
there's no emotion involved.
Yeah,
writing a business book.
I mean, you sort of mentioned that you're kind of leaving the kind of recruitment industry. Does that mean you're leaving the recruitment industry to become an author full time?
No, I see. So if I meditate on my memoir, I literally see it everywhere. I see it in bookshops everywhere, which is quite extraordinary. And I see myself speaking on really big stages. And I have been told by a few psychics in the past, you're going to stand on these enormous stages. And I can totally feel that. And I'm like, not in recruitment, I'm not. So I think that there'll be a career of going and telling my story to inspire my generation to heal. Surprisingly. Because Gen X actually has the highest suicide rate, and Gen Z is not far behind. And it's like, we need to stop that. And the only way to stop that is for our generation, which struggle to be so vulnerable, is someone like me to be standing on these big stages, being really vulnerable and telling my story. So that's what I see happening. Whether that's what happens, we'll find out. But it feels like my soul is calling me to go and be brave and just tell my story. And just for people like my sister who she will not look at it. She just says, no, I'm not opening the lid to Pandora's box. And I'm going, but you don't open the lid to Pandora's box. That's not how healing works. Like, it's layers, right? Yeah. And that's why I've explained it. And it's going to trigger people. They'll be like, it'll bring up healing in them. They won't like it. They'll throw it aside. So yeah, I do see memoirist and speaker as, who knows? I might still be in TA in 5 years after having said that. Yeah. We'll find out, won't we?
So as I guess a kind of way
I'm putting myself out there, aren't I?
Yeah, maybe a kind of way to comfortably kind of wrap up. What's your hope for Reboot Hiring, whether that's sales, feedback, the impact it could have? What is your hope for it? I know what you intend it to do. What is your hope for it? What is your kind of vision for it?
Well, genuinely, so let's go back out on the woo again, seeing I've already just gone there. When I meditate, because I don't just see my memoir. So I sort of see my memoir making this golden ripple around the world. And inside, I see Reboot Hiring making a smaller but valuable ripple around the world. And it's because if you could get this to managers and they could start treating people better and recruiting better, that doesn't just impact the people in the hiring process. That impacts their families. That impacts their children. That impacts their dogs and cats and whatever. You know what I mean? As there's this what's it called? Waterfall. Thingo? That impact. Sorry, my dog woke me up twice during the night. I'm like, ugh. But that... I think we forget that sometimes, you know, when someone is in the hiring process and they get depressed. And actually, really horrifically, somebody sent me an update where her father was made redundant on March 2020, and 6 months later he took his own life because he could not get back into work, and he didn't ask for help. So when you think of my memoir, that's about open up, just ask for help, just talk to someone, just don't bottle it, right? We, as a generation, actually most of us are Gen X, maybe not Mark, that we were taught to stiff up a lip, and it's like, we can't do that. So there's sort of that element. And then it's we need to understand as leaders that we can cause somebody to kill themselves by not getting back to them. He was ghosted. That depression led him to take his life. And I'm sure there's countless examples out there. And it's like, so my hope is that they read this and just see the human side, that one, their behavior is self-sabotaging, so it's impacting them. And that's like two, well, three, like I'm impacting the mental health of my recruiters and then the people in the job in the hiring process. So it's big, lofty hopes I have for it. I want it everywhere. I want you guys to just get it everywhere so we can just, well, 100%. That is if you read it and you think it's good and worth passing on, but you know, please, let's get this message out there.
And to that point, Angela, I mean, really experienced people applying for multiple hundreds of jobs and getting little to no response or feedback at all. And it's kind of almost like, when did we get to a point where individuals who are responsible for people and hiring and human interaction actually give zero care to somebody's kind of registration of interest or input? And the age-old argument is, we get loads of applications, blah, 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 blah. It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse in any way, shape or form.
I want you to feel like I do. There is exactly one person that came for an interview that I didn't give feedback to. And I don't know how I didn't, but I remember it and I still feel bad about it. That is how people should feel. If people interview, they deserve feedback. It's James Ellis. I'm stealing this from you. Payment for their time. And then close people. It is just natural, not 3 months later like Mark's getting. Close them appropriately within a normal time frame.
I'm glad to say, I mean, there are those stories, but actually yesterday I spent with hiring managers and one of the topics was on how to give great feedback, both the positives and the negatives, so people can develop. So people are seeing that is important, and therefore the difference it can make, one, to the individual, but also to their view of that company and how they can, even if they're not getting the job, they can help them for the next opportunity that they get, and they may get that job instead, and they'll still remember that it was that feedback that made the difference. So it's a simple thing to do. It can take 5 minutes, but it makes all the difference.
I think there's an interesting point Mark just made. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Can I just?
Yeah.
I put out a LinkedIn newsletter today, which is my conversation with Steve Gard and he's got this tool, Benchmarks, that will actually calculate the cost, particularly for B2C, of that person not becoming a client. So that person not buying your services. So there's actually not just a human, there's a productivity, a profit sense to just treat people with kindness. Sorry, Glenn. I
was just picking up on Mark M's point where there's a classification thing here, because you could get a job in recruitment and suddenly you're called a recruiter. You're not a recruiter. You're an administrator. You're somebody in learning, right? You don't get to be called a recruiter until you get to a certain level. And I think there's this kind of, certainly within the startup space, there's this popular misconception that somebody in ops or somebody in admin or an office manager can kind of do recruitment and they're the recruiter. They're not. They're not even close to being a qualified recruiter. And I think there's probably a terminology thing we need to address here, in as much as, certain people are not recruiters. They may be working in recruitment, but they're not recruiters.
Do you know that one's a huge one for me, Glenn? It's so frustrating, because I remember when I first joined agency, went into Manpower, started a temp desk. I'm ringing clients going, "Hi, I'm a recruitment consultant." How the hell am I a consultant? I didn't know jack shit about recruitment. And you're kind of like, come on now. I'm having to fake it till I make it. But the trouble is, it's almost, there's a lack of honesty from the outset. And there's this expectation that we have to represent being the trusted advisor and the expert, even in internal talent acquisition and RPO. And it's like, that's great, but somebody who has literally just joined your business isn't ready to be all of those things. And we just don't invest enough in supporting those people, again, in those hiring manager calls, Katrina, or in the calls in where I was at AMS. You're looking at the structure where you've got a sourcer and a recruiter in the room that are supporting the hiring manager with the intake call. And yet the recruiter's very often running all over the sourcer, or vice versa, because you've got an experienced person and someone that isn't so sure of themselves. And there is a lot that we do to undermine ourselves as an industry, but I also think that it is about that credibility a lot of the time, which hopefully this book will start to flag a little bit more. And what I'm posting out at the moment, I'm getting a lot of feedback. People are saying, we're not recognised as being credible as a function. We're not, as you say, being seen as an overhead cost. Automatically thinks, oh, well, where can we cut? Talent development, talent acquisition, those things don't really matter. No, I'm afraid they do.
They totally do. And I think that the issue is, if you can't get the bloody meeting with them in the first place, how can you start to give your credibility? And again, chicken and egg, right? It's this problem. And I feel like I've bleated enough at TA about this is what I need you to do. But, fired, rehired, then they went through that massive where they just worked their butts off doing all the overhiring, fired again, kind of vaguely rehired. And I see what's going to happen. Companies are going to go, we can AI this, and fire them again, which would be brilliant for external recruiters. they're going to be loving it, because obviously companies won't be able to hire. So it's like they're at breaking point. I needed to write something for the other side. This just makes the case for you.
Katrina. The whole premise of
I feel very ranty.
No, that's what it is, though. It's a frustration, right? Coming from what we do day to day, something that we're passionate about, and there's so many different elements of it. The very premise is, we want to show there's a process to onboard your stakeholder as part of the process, but there's something that's not missing. They actually don't fundamentally understand what we do, right?
No.
And that's the big problem. I say that is across the board at an executive layer, because everyone just thinks, okay, you post a job on Seek, on Indeed or whatever it is, then you get people applying, and then you speak to them, and then the managers do all the work. Well, no. This is what we have to do. There's so many elements to it. Are you talking about candidate experience? Are you talking beautiful
talent? What?
That's it.
Into that one.
2 chapters explaining what the hell talent acquisition is and demystifying all the BS, because it literally is. I'm sorry, what? The HR, so personnel, has been around since the 1950s, and I still don't know what HR does. I'm still, and TA is a whole new function. They don't know. So yeah, sorry, back on.
Sorry, no, it's one of the things which, bouncing off of what Mark said there, one of the problems I think a lot of the time as well with TA is it's the last one to get actual meaningful data and access to meaningful data to be able to produce information that quantifies what we do. Because the ATS systems aren't compatible. We don't have the CRM that feeds into the ATS system. Our HRIS is not supportive of actually telling the story of what we've done, how we've done it. Even when you work in RPO, getting your client's data, it's like, look, I need your data so that I can represent that back to you and tell you how well we're doing our job. But no, we can't do that, because we don't have that ability to actually look at things from a holistic perspective, because it's not valued enough to actually.
Why do you think that is?
Right tech.
Why do you think that is?
Why do I think they don't invest in it? Or
well, the technology isn't fit.
You're not getting the data. Why do you think that there's that lack of respect for
data,
the function?
I think a lot of the time it is data. It's to do with this fact that people want. They want the data. They want they want you to be able to tell the story, but what they don't want to do is invest in something that they see as overhead, Mark. And because they see us as overhead, whatever they see that, it's the minimum standard. What's the minimum I can get a recruiter for? What's the minimum that they'll take in terms of salary? What's the minimum ATS system and functionality I can pay for in order to be able to do the job? Not how can I measure it, because they don't think about that when they implement the systems a lot of the time. And then we end up retrospectively trying to prove why we're valuable as a function, but when we don't have the data or the information to be able to pull from, because they've not set it up in the first place. I also think TA is very bad, a bit like for banging your own drum and adding value and telling people, look, if you want us to do this properly, we need to be able to capture the data from day one, which means that you need to put the right processes and practices and technology in place to support us in delivery of that, so that we can tell you the story you want to hear.
But that doesn't happen. Those technology conversations, they leave TA out of it. And I was doing a piece of work, and actually the story is in Reboot Hiring. And, we've gone there and we're doing this amazing work, and, it cost this company a lot to bring us to these 3 different countries and deliver this what was ended up being 7 days or something, 5 days of training for each person. And they then rolled out a HRIS add-on ATS, which immediately tripled the number of applicants they were going to get per role, because it had one set of knockout questions for the world. And I got so angry when I heard about it. Thankfully, it was at the end of what we were doing. I was like, why are we here? Why are we teaching you any of this? You're not going to have any time to do any of this. That you cannot create a candidate first process with a not fit for. And what had happened was they had left talent acquisition out of the entire conversation. The people that use the technology day in, day out, know what they effing well need, are left out of the conversation. Oh, because the salesperson on the HR tech company went, well, throw in an ATS.
Or
here you go.
Katrina, how do you think the large enterprise ATSs get into those large organizations. They're using other components to get into the C level, and they're giving it away for free, right? That's it. And you look at it and go, really? If I went and I chose your accounting platform, would you not get pissed off? Yes.
Yeah.
But why are you choosing mine? Right? Don't talk to me about my tools. Give me the opportunity. I think
like what you're saying is you're having a professional conversation, you're pushing back and you're making sense. And this is why you're intimidating to some companies, because you know what you're doing.
But I'm a sweetheart.
Everything's a bit messy at the moment. You get shit done.
I think
it's like the market's a bit weird. It's like we need to sort this out. So,
well, the market, at least here down under, is struggling. So I spoke to a rec the other day, and she goes, "Oh, I can't find any good recruiters." And I'm going, "What do you mean? There's heaps. Look at these companies." She goes, "None of them have been through about." Hold on, but this was the data point that came out of it. She goes, "There are many recruiters, but none of them have been through hard times. They are all about messaging people on LinkedIn. No one can pick up the phone." And that's what you need in a time where you've switched from a candidate-driven market to a client-driven market. None of them have been through it. None of them have been through the tough times.
Yeah.
So
I think that links.
That was interesting hearing that about agency recruiters.
I think that links back to the point, Mark, around hiring managers' perception of what a recruiter is. And as the recruiter gets framed as this kind of sourcing, kind of like admin reactive person, right? Then the cost gets associated with that. And then suddenly the frame of reference for a quote unquote recruiter is this, and it's not individuals like us collectively who would be seen as a high cost, more consultative, and actually would come in and genuinely change things. They're just looking for a plug and play option. That's it. You know what I mean? And then suddenly, and I get this a bit as well, like, we don't really need the consultative piece. We just need somebody to come in and fill the roles. You're just like, well, actually what you're doing then is compounding more cost, more time cost on the back end, because ultimately you're not thinking about it really strategically, you idiots. But go for it.
I like you idiots on the end there, Glenn. You're getting in with the fight. We're getting fighty over here.
I know.
That'd use something else if you're Australian.
We have some wonderful words, don't we? But I do need you to say data. I'm gonna keep getting at you for that. Data. It's so funny when I go back to Australia and
what's the data or data?
What's the other one? How do you say project? No. How do you say that one? There's another word. Project. Anyway, it cracks me up every time I'm home. I changed my directions on my phone, in the maps to an Australian accent. Oh my God, cracks me up every time. It's not Catford, it's Catford. It's not Dartford, it's Dartford. It's just like, I don't know why. It's really entertaining. Anyway.
Well, we come
to mine. It changes. Sometimes I'll be literally heading towards somewhere else, and suddenly I'll get to the roundabout where you could go towards Leicester, and it'll literally go, "You are now turning towards Leicester," and I'm like, "What? What?"
You've got to switch it to an Australian accent. Literally, it's hilarious. I don't know why, and I'm taking it out of my own kind, but it really cracks me up. Anyway, we should wrap up. Oh my God, you guys have been amazing. Thank you everybody who popped in, and if anyone is out there watching live, who knows? Thank you very much for watching along as well.
Katrina, I love the hair. It looks amazing.
Hang on, Mark, because we can stay in the room for a second when I end it. So I'll end it and you'll still be here. And then you can go on about my fab hair. Glenn, thank you so much for being the most amazing co-host.